Welcome everyone who are in here. Let me just do a quick introductions of myself. My name is Hui Yi. You might have seen me in some other sessions if you participated in some of the other unicorn sessions as well. I'm HR Business Partner Manager for Information and Analytics. And I also lead the Singapore Employer Branding space together with Owlin, which some of you may have known. So today, as I mentioned, it's our last finale sessions of our Unicorn 2020, ending with a career workshop with Ian Low, who is our country analytics manager currently based in Vietnam. So before we start, just a quick kind of like ground rules. As Ian is sharing, remember to mute yourself. We'll be happy if you turn on your video camera so we can see you. And if you want to ask questions, you can either type it in the Zoom chat, or like you can also join the Q&A on Pigeonhole using a passcode Ian Low. And then that in there, you can kind of type your questions, or you can vote the questions, upvote the questions, so we know like which one are the most popular one that we ensure that we'll get to answer that later on. Of course, later on in the Q&A segment, if you want, please feel free to unmute yourself, raising your hand, and then we were happy to have this like two-way conversation with you as well. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Ian.
Cool, thanks, Hui. So hi everyone. I'm excited to be with you guys and share with you about INA and especially my career here in Unilever. So like Hui mentioned, I'm currently the analytics manager for Vietnam, but I'm actually on an assignment here and I'm coming from Singapore. And my career in Unilever has been about 5 coming to 6 years already, with the last 1 year plus in information and analytics. So I'll quickly talk about what INA is first before I move on. But the information analytics team, I would say, is compared to the other functions, it's a younger team that we've really started out in the last couple of years. Initially, starting out in more basic analytics functions in terms of reporting, data centralization and stuff like that, but really growing our capability into data science and machine learning in order to help provide better value add for the business. Yeah. And in the last 2 years, we've been really following this purpose, right? As INA in Unilever. It's to help our company become data intelligent. And that means that enabling and empowering the company to make key decisions through the use of data, advanced analytics, and even artificial intelligence to help accelerate growth and also drive efficiencies within the business. And most people don't realize this, but as INA, we also help in these 4 pillars, right? Helping businesses unlock savings within their P&L, unlocking efficiencies within their processes, helping them drive growth and incremental sales, but also helping Unilever and our countries drive the capability and the mindset to be data-driven, right? Whether or not it's in marketing, sales, finance, or even in media or in CMI. Yep. And the way that we operate within is that we really embed ourselves close to the business value chain, right? How do we identify where we step in and drive our INA agenda across the business value chain? What I'm showing here is basically at a high level what our business value chain looks like, right? Coming all the way from planning to procurement, to production, logistics, sales itself in both our distributive and modern trade. And also if you're working in the head office, then you participate a lot in evaluation, process evaluation, investment evaluation, and so on. Underpinning that is 2 key things. One is managing cash for the business and also managing the resource and capacity for the business itself. Where we sit, traditionally, we perform performance management analytics, providing insights and trends. And this is typically what a lot of finance analysts, business analysts do for the business, right? But how we've evolved in a couple of years is to start embedding value-added capability through machine learning, right? How do we improve better sales forecasting through machine learning by looking at really granular trends and insights in the market, and also help to perform better, more detailed and automated intelligence from the market. Yeah. The next thing is, how do we help the business improve their planning by optimizing the way they plan, right? So whether or not it's in promotion planning, for example, how do we define, the best calendar, the most efficient calendar of promotions to roll out for our customers? Which also then ties into, how do we optimize our investments, right? Are we investing things at the right level? Are we allocating the right volume for investment, and etc. Right? At that point in time, then we also look at resource optimization, right? Are we putting in the right resources in place in order to achieve the plans and investments that we want? Are we under-resourcing or are we over-resourcing, both in terms of human capacity, but also in terms of supply chain and our infrastructure, right? And within sales side, it's about understanding the potential of sales that's happening in our markets across channels. So doing segmentation analysis and etc. And also helping the business to optimize and understand how do they drive more growth, right? For example, we could do it through SKU optimization, or we could do it through channel segmentation and etc. And underpinning all of that from INA, it's about establishing the right data infrastructure, helping the business automate their business process as much as possible, and embedding that data-driven mindset and capability. So at the core, that is what the information and analytics team does within Unilever. And we are embedded both globally, across functions, and even across markets as well. Yeah. So that kind of takes us to what are the different roles available at Unilever for information analytics. Where I'm seated right now is in the business analytics team, and I'm the market lead for Vietnam. And the role that we play here is understanding the insights from the business and how that translates into machine learning, for example, building the requirements from business and helping to be that bridge between business and technology. Yep. The next pillar, which is similar to a business analyst role, is a product management role. These people are experts within a specific field, right? Whether or not it's in promotion management, SKU optimization, and so on and so forth. But these people, they own the strategy of a specific product, and they own the pipeline and the roadmap in terms of how do we land and activate these products across markets in Unilever, right? At the core of these two teams is the data science team, right? And these are the people with in-depth, deep knowledge into math, statistics, machine learning, etc. And they help us understand the innateness of our data, the nuances of our data, and help to understand what kind of data modeling do we need to put in place, or even help us define the right business question that we are trying to resolve for, but through the lens of using data, right? Supporting that is our data expertise team, which at its core, they are basically the experts of the data across our systems in Unilever. They are also the data engineers in terms of helping us understand how to use our data, how to engineer our data in the best and most efficient way while unlocking the utility of data, right? The fifth pillar is technology. These are the people who help design and maintain our cloud architecture across Unilever in order to enable all of the work that we're doing across INA. The last team is on Information Factory, and this is the team that helps us unlock business process automation across Unilever. Unilever, as you're aware, is a company that is steeped in history and tradition. We have a lot of legacies that we are trying to evolve into the future. The Information Factory helps us identify and unlock the best, most optimized business processes and data processes in order to remove the need of human touch activities and replace that with robotic operations. Yep. So these are the six sub-functions, as you call it, in Unilever for information and analytics. And just to quickly close it off here is to kind of share how I got into this space in Unilever. Um, well, where I initially started with was a diploma in computer engineering, right, back in Singapore. And then I explored economics and actual science in SMU. So that kind of helped gave me a background in computing, but also helped me understand math, statistics, etc. But my first role as I graduated and went into exploring my career was in sales operations and also dabbling in business intelligence. So this is where I was really embedded in how sales was running, understanding what are the key sales KPIs that people look for to drive sales, but also having the data lens to see how do we build intelligence out of that and support forecasting activities, for example. Then I came into Unilever about 5 to 6 years ago, and I started out in HR in Unilever. And I was performing some of the talent management roles, but also working a lot primarily in organizational effectiveness, where I was helping different markets understand in terms of resource investment, in terms of understanding if the right structures in place, and etc. But also doing that from a lens of HR analytics, even to the point where I was working with the global team in terms of understanding predictive movements, right? Understanding how people are moving across functions and how are they growing their careers. And finally, that led me into the analytics and data science team in information analytics, where I spent the last 1 year and 8 months now, and based out in Vietnam, leading the agenda and really getting exposed into how Unilever runs in Vietnam as an operating company. Yep, what comes next, of course, as you can see, I pursue experiences, not just a career roadmap. But to me, career and experience is always evolving. And therefore, I'm picking up with what's next, what's the most interesting in order to help enhance my understanding and my capability of business. Cool. So that's all I have at the moment. Open it up, I guess, to any questions that you have about INA in Unilever, or even about my career here in Unilever.
Cool. Thanks, Ian. So we do have some questions. Maybe before I jump into it, just a reminder, if any one of you want to like raise your hand and unmute yourself, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, you can go to Pigeonhole or type in the Zoom chat. So we do have some, and we do have some questions over on Pigeonhole already. So the top most questions is, what kind of hardware skills are beneficial when it comes to working in the analytics functions in Unilever?
Yeah, so I would say that it's a broad variety. It really depends on what sub-function of INA you are looking into. But as a basis, at least, you need to be very familiar in exploratory data analysis, right? Understanding how to explore data and find the insights through it. Everyone in INA needs to have that as a basic, right? And in terms of hardware, it can be R, it can be Python. I think these are two most commonly used ones, not just in Unilever, but in the wider technology and FMCG industry as well. Yep. If you go a bit further, then I think it's moving into a role as a data scientist, right? Math and stats is very important for a data scientist. Reason being is that, yes, you can go out there, you can learn how to code, you can learn how to use these ready-made packages for machine learning. But at the end of the day, it's really about how you prepare your model. How do you make sure that your model can be as much as possible free from any potential biases, right? So math and stats is quite important for a person playing a data science role in order to make sure that we put forward a good model for the business. In data engineering, similarly, Python and R, but I think at a more advanced level, and also the ability to work with big data, to work within cloud infrastructure using things like Azure Data Factory or Azure Databricks, right? In the technology space, you need to be very familiar with cloud architecture. You need to understand how that works and how you can create a cloud ecosystem for the business, whether or not it's for the broader agenda or for specific products, for example. Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Ian. So related to that question, do you think it's possible for an intern, let's say, working with the INA team, being only in second year of uni and having basic knowledge in Excel?
So it depends again. I think if you're interested to pursue a role as a business analyst, right, then definitely yes, there's an opportunity here to explore in terms of working with the business, building out requirements, understanding the insights of business process and the data behind that. So yes, definitely. But there's definitely also the opportunity for you to develop here at Unilever to pick up some of these coding skills. We have put in place a lot of different online learning resources that can really help you explore some of these skill sets.
Okay, thanks, Ian. The next questions is about internship opportunity. So let me take that. I think for INA team, where we usually kind of hire, it's in the Gen X area from an internship perspective, which is our part-time or full-time 6 months long internship in general. From a full-time opportunity perspective, it's more in the direct entry. Although we did hire a UFL piece in INA just last year, he's our first UFLP in general. So do look out for more information on that when we launch our Gen X internship. So maybe the next questions, Ian, which part of the information and analytic jobs is most exciting to you?
I think every function is actually exciting. It gives you a different lens of how you land a product into the business. Right now, where I'm at is at the business analyst role, and that's where I'm finding the most passion at the moment. Reason why is because you are really forced to be a partner with the business. Forced in a good way, not in a bad way. And you're really working with them, and it gives you the opportunity to understand why sales operates the way it operates. It's easy for us to sit behind the laptop and churn out insights from data, but we also need to remember that at the end of the day, people create data, right? So biases in people create biases in data, and understanding how that happens helps us better understand how we deploy our data and how we deploy our products. So that kind of role, really asks for a curious mindset, a person who wants to investigate and understand and not just to design. But also help to bring some of these ideas into life as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Ian. Let me look at the next questions. I think it's again coming back to the skills. So like there's a questions about I'm a business student specializing in business analytics. While we learn to apply machine learning models, but we are not maths and statistically trained. So how do you think this kind of profile would fit in INA?
Cool. So I think there's two places that you can fit into. One is again a business analytics role. Why is that knowledge about that fundamental knowledge about machine learning and how to apply machine learning helps you bridge the gap between tech and business, right? The other function that you can explore is also in data engineering, right? On one end of data engineering, it's about data expertise, setting up data models, and etc. But it's also about machine learning engineering, right? So while the data scientist helps to propose and design the right model, the machine learning engineer steps in to say, how do we operationalize this model in the most efficient and effective way, right? So you don't really need the math and stats. You don't need huge strength areas in that. But that would call for a good knowledge about machine learning algorithms and also coding as well.
Okay. So essentially it's like a collaboration with the data scientist team having
Correct.
that basic knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let me just look at the next questions. They're keen to understand what kind of tools or software are currently being used in the IAA team in Unilever.
Yep. So right now, the basic, of course, like I said, it's Python and R. In terms of cloud, we are using the Microsoft Azure stack. And within that, we are using Databricks. Yep. So in terms of coding relevance, it's a lot of Python, PySpark, and etc. Yep. In terms of enabling better data science exploration, we are using a couple of tools that we're actually still exploring right now before we roll out a specific one. We use H2O AI for driverless artificial intelligence. That helps us speed up the process in designing and experimenting data science models within a single platform itself. There are other similar platforms as well, such as Data Robot, that we are also experimenting.
Oh, sounds very exciting. Although, like, coming from someone who has no knowledge, I kind of know a little bit based on my talk with my husband who knows about this stuff. Okay, so let me see. Maybe next questions, I think, again, related to information side. For someone with for like non-maths or statistic major students to apply for a career in analytics department, do you think that's okay, or is it mandatory from a degree requirement perspective?
Well, I mean, I would say that, we all study in Singapore. So at basic, we all have a foundation in math and science, right? Especially in uni as well. So that alone enough is good enough. It's good enough to get us into the space of business analytics, right? And that is where you are more focused on the business side of things and helping them translate some of these things into processes, into mathematical understanding. You don't need such an advanced skill set unless you are really looking to be in a data science role.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, Ian. I think in next questions, it's about, I don't know, based on your previous hiring experiences, was there a coding interview component?
Yes, so far I've only recruited for engineers and data scientists. So yes, there's a coding interview. But of course, truth be told, every coder, every programmer out there, most of the time is copy and paste, and then you refine it from there. So we're not looking for the best and fastest coder, of course not, but we're looking at a person who has the right thought process, right? If I give you an engineering question and I say I need you to achieve this, can you develop the right thought process to get us there, right? And of course, yes, be able to show that you can code, but we do give you time to make sure that you put that thought process out and write that out in code.
Yep. Okay. And I guess from an internship perspective, I don't think we have actually given someone an actual coding exercise during the day itself. I think similar to what you say, Ian, is probably asking you, how would you approach this question?
Correct.
And then you being able to articulate, so this is how we approach it using whatever methodology in general. So I think that thinking logically is really key as part of the process, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And then maybe the other questions. So what's the possible challenges you have faced when you shift to a global role, probably in a reference into one of your career journey experiences, or maybe you can also share like moving from Singapore to Vietnam, doing different things, any challenges that you face and how do you overcame?
So moving into a global role, well, I've always been in an MNC SME type role, handling regional portfolio. And the real change came from me when I moved out of Singapore into Vietnam, and I was based out of an operating company. That's where I've seen the most change. And in terms of how, maybe I'll first highlight the main differences, right? When you're in a regional role, I think most of the time you're looking at things from a strategic lens. You're looking at how things land across markets and how we define a right strategy to do that is aligned. when you're in the market, you start seeing how these things don't work out as always 100%. You'll start finding out how legacy systems have created differences, right? And you start to find out how consumer behaviors are different across markets and how that drives different sales patterns, right? So how I approached it was that I had to come in as if I did not have any 4 years at the back of my hand in Unilever. I could not assume that I know anything about Unilever because now it is specifically Unilever Vietnam. And that for me drove a huge sense of curiosity to find out what's happening in the business. That's the first thing. Wherever you go, that's the first thing to have. It's the curiosity about what is the business, what's happening in the business, and etc. And that helps you internalize and chart out your path in terms of how you're going to land in here in this new role, in this new market, and how you're going to chart out the rest of your 2 years or 3 years in that business.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Those are all of the questions that I see on Pigeonhole actually. So maybe just going back to the wider kind of theme in the call, if anyone has anything that want to continue ask Ian, feel free to type in the Zoom chat or like raise your hand, unmute yourself. I think if you want, you can just unmute yourself in general if you still have any other questions for information and analytics in general. Anyone? Don't be shy. Anyone asking questions, you stand a chance to win a Unilever swag bag. If I forgot to mention that, I'm just going back to Pigeonhole and see if there's anything in particular. No questions. All right, while you are thinking, maybe let me ask you a question. So Ian, in your years in Unilever, like that, for all those analytics projects that you have done so far, which is a project that, like in terms of achievements, or it, even though not just about achievement, but also the progress that you're approaching it, which one is the most satisfactory one for you?
Most satisfactory. Okay, I think in my current role, what we're working on right now is an analytics platform for our fuel sales, right? In order to help them get access to insights faster, number one. But also the opportunity that as we land this capability, start to inset in their minds and build that mindset on being data driven and start to introduce more advanced stuff, which right now we are working on introducing a machine learning algorithm for the salesman beat problem, right? Helping them optimize their sales journey. We're also providing them a new capability in terms of how do we foresee in advance if we are going to lose distribution in a specific store, and how do we then react to that faster. So I think that by far is the most exciting and most impactful project that I'm working on. And the reason why is that it has immediate impact on the business. It has a potential to be a strong impact on the business. And that's what's driving the most excitement for me.
Cool, thanks Ian. We have a question from Fatin in the chat. I might need to ask you to elaborate a little bit because the question is, can I know how competitive your current position is in terms of your daily job responsibilities? Do you know what it means? Is it, Fatin, do you mind like clarifying it for us in terms of like, what do you mean? Do you mean like how fast paced it is in terms of daily job responsibility, or do you mean something else? Do you want to unmute yourself? Yes, how fast paced is this?
How fast paced?
In terms of a day-to-day perspective.
Well, given my context, right, where I'm playing the lead role here for the Vietnam portfolio, Plus also, we really only started this journey for Vietnam last year, right? And in this 2 years, the demand has grown vastly, cross-functionally. Right now, I'm managing 10 projects concurrently across sales, supply chain, and finance. So it's definitely very, very fast-paced. And my main responsibility is having that partnership with the business, making sure that we get their requirements on board, but also playing a consulting role by advising them that maybe there's a certain way that we need to look at this question, that we can answer this question. Also advising them how do we build the right data strategy to enable some of these projects and business objectives that we want to attain. So that's the main core responsibility of what I go through day to day. But it's also about leading a small team here, and also with some contractors that we have to help build and deploy some of these items, but working with them to make sure that we are able to deliver the right technical requirements for the business.
Okay, thanks, Ian. We got some new questions from the Pigeonhole. It's asking about your most challenging project that you have worked on. I'm not sure if your answer will be the same as the most satisfactory one or a different one.
I would say the challenge to me, it's the same across projects. Why is because in the journey that we're having in Unilever, we are changing mindsets, right? We are changing the way people think. We are changing the way people approach things. And in a country like Vietnam, and I think you'll see that from most developing markets, is that they have a very fixed and traditional way of doing things. A lot of people go by gut versus data. And getting them to make that shift is the most challenging thing that we really cannot undersell or underlook it.
So how were you able to like help them make the shift?
It's still in progress, I will admit. But I think number one is really seeing things from their perspective, right? And then offering solutions to them, but in a more evolutionary way, right? If I go to them and say, hey, why don't we just deploy this constraint optimization model using Gorobi optimization or something like that? They're gonna look at me with their faces blank, and they'll say it's too difficult. I don't understand. It's a black box, and we're never gonna do it, right? So in one specific project, we rolled out a model that was, I would think, very basic. It didn't give us the best result, but good enough result to help the business rank and prioritize their actions, right? That got them into the space to start exploring more. And slowly I started introducing concepts to them. Right now I'm even going a bit further by working with our learning team in Vietnam to roll out a capability program for key people within the business whom we see can participate in design thinking with data and machine learning. So we're taking a step-by-step process. Number one, by easing them into machine learning, but also helping to build up some capability and applied understanding into this field.
Cool. Thanks, Ian. The next questions that it's asking about entry-level role in INA. Does that mean a lot of manual data work?
I mean, the whole point of INA is to take away all that manual work, right? So definitely, if you are coming in and doing manual data entry, then you're not in INA. Maybe you're in a business that we're trying to transition into the new way of working, right? So entry level, depending on your skill set, maybe you'll play a role as a data expert, right? Helping to understand the use of data systems and etc., and how to convert some of those understanding into the more technical teams such as the engineers and the data scientists.
Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on data expert as a concept.
Yep. So if you look at the data expertise field, there are several layers. The lowest layer is a data expert. These are essentially people who are familiar with business systems, right? SAP, and etc. Right? People who also work with the business in terms of deploying and maintaining master data, right? Or even dealing with the transactional systems. So these people are very familiar with how data is generated and can help us understand the behavior behind data and what are the potential issues behind data, right? At the next layer, then that's where your data engineers step in. They are the people who come in and say that, hey, this is what we can do with all this data to bring them all together, whether or not it's to establish a single source of truth or help us be able to attain machine learning as a next step.
Cool, thanks. That helps. Also helping me. There's another question from Wei Ling asking, what kind of personality traits will be best suited for a job in INA? Maybe on that, or maybe as one of the person who has been in INA for some time, what maybe you can share, like what kind of profile that you are looking for, like that would fit into what Unilever INA team is doing?
Yeah, so I think at its core, people who are curious, right? That's the one trait that I see a lot of us have, right? Curious to understand how the business works, curious to how do we do things differently. That's one. The other part is that we are very much we very much have a startup personality, right? We will go out, we will find what the problems are, we will try and resolve them. And instead of sitting back and say that, okay, business comes to me with a requirement, but rather we tend to try and go out and pursue to see what's out there. So I think these are the two key things that drives a lot of us in Unilever, in INA as well, to help go out and seek where we can put our expertise in to build value back into the business.
Yeah. Okay, and I think the agility is also quite important, right, Ian?
Yes, that's
to be
true.
able to be agile and adapt accordingly based on what you observe from the business itself.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Like business context is always changing. Therefore, we need that agility to flex our way of thinking, to flex. Some of us have spent years in math and stats, and therefore we have a very certain structured way of thinking. But sometimes we need that creativity and that agility to look at it differently, right? A lot of things in machine learning may be designed one way, but you can actually borrow it to apply to something else, right? A lot of traditional machine learning algorithms out there come from the field of science, in chemistry, in healthcare, and etc. And a lot of them are borrowed to be landed into business, right? So that agility and that creativity to do so. And of course, the learning agility, right? Things are always evolving. You have new technologies, new products, new business concepts for you to learn about, etc.
Okay, cool. There's a questions about what is your typical day like at Unilever by Jingjie, and then maybe linking to that, I assume you would have meetings with stakeholders. So another person is asking about like having to juggle the 10 projects that you mentioned earlier. How do you manage the expectations of these stakeholders as part of your day-to-day?
Are you talking about pre-COVID or post-COVID day to day?
Up to you.
I'll speak generally, right? In terms of my day to day, I do have a couple of key people who I speak to every day in order to get updates about the business. So I spend a lot of time speaking to people and exploring opportunities for Vietnam. I would say then 50% of, not 50, maybe 30% of my day is spent then taking some of this learning, working with my team, working with our global architecture team or data engineers, people who maintain our data lake to help understand what do we need to do to bring some of these ideas into life, right? Of course, day to day is not the same every day. It depends on what priorities are at the top this week or this month? What are we doing in the next 30 days? For example, are we pushing a pilot out, which we are doing right now as well? So then that kind of shifts my agenda and my priorities for each month and each week, where I then work more closely with the business team in order to establish change management, for example. Or I'm working with the capability team to establish good, proper training to go out into the business.
Cool. And then about the stakeholder one?
How I deal with stakeholders, is it?
Yeah, how do you manage expectations of different stakeholders?
So I personally, I don't think there's one answer to this because every stakeholder is different. And sometimes it also depends on whether or not their priorities are aligned with yours. So every stakeholder is a bit different. I think the way I approach it with them is that I always listen them out first, right? In certain countries, like I think in Vietnam or maybe even in China, where opinions are very strong, right? So you need to sit back and let them weigh out their opinions before you step in and say your opinion. So in terms of managing with them, I always let them have the first say, but as long as I end up with the last say, that's fine.
Cool. Alrighty, I think we are almost at the top of the hour. So thank you everyone for joining the sessions, and you can see the link that we have posted over there. Please do fill up the surveys, redeem your Ben & Jerry vouchers, and note that our applications are open from now till 13th September for the area FLP and ULI. If you're interested, do watch out. But yes, thanks again, Ian, for all your sharing. Actually, there is still another questions about like how does your work link with sustainability. I'm not sure if that's something that you can answer very quickly, or we'll just leave it up to like the answering in the IG stories, for example.
At this moment, not directly, but in INA, there is a data science team working on sustainability. I can't comment further, but maybe after the call, we can figure out and share with you guys.
Cool. Great. Thank you everyone again for participating, and thanks Ian. So that's the final event of our Unicorn 2020. Thank you everyone for your attendance. There'll be recordings uploaded onto our website. So if you want, you can kind of relive this talk to figure out some of the questions and how Ian answered some of those. Thank you everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Cool. Thanks everyone.